Hello student, in today's video we are going to discuss about legal research. In this video we'll see how to conduct effectively and systematically a legal research, because the correctness of legal research determine how we'll reach our outcome. So it is important to conduct our research in an efficient and systematic manner. So in today's video we'll learn everything about research, how to conduct a research, how to build a hypothesis, what are the major stages of legal research, what are the types of legal research. I assure you that this video will give you all the practical insights that is required for conducting research in legal field. You don't need to watch any other video or read any other material before starting the research. This is the one video that help you in every way possible for conducting legal research. So let's start the video. So first of all, we'll understand what is research. As you can see here, research is a systematic investigation towards increasing the sum of human knowledge, and as the process of identifying and investigating a fact or problem to acquire an insight into it or find an apt solution therefore. तो ये definition से you can understand that research is something that is a systematic investigation. So we need to carefully examine our observation and find an outcome that can increase the sum of human knowledge. Already there is an existing knowledge. We are trying to get something new from this existing knowledge. We are increasing this knowledge. So how to conduct this systematic investigation we'll see throughout this video. And as a process of identifying and investigating a fact or a problem to acquire an insight, here we have to get our insight into it to find an apt solution therefore. First of all, in research, what we are investigating, a systematic investigation toward increasing human knowledge. So this is a general definition of a research. Now if we see law is a dynamic subject. Law changes with society. The law at one point of time is good, but with the time and the change in society, it does not serve the same purpose as it was brought for. So what is required is the constant research and efforts toward developing good law and making bad law disappear from our society. So when a law is there serving its purpose for more than 100 years, but after 100 years it become redundant, then what is the duty of researcher? The researcher duty is to find an apt solution from the existing law. So therefore researchers are required to meet the requirement of present day challenges. So researchers should apply their mind and delve into the necessities of present day society. Research is a careful, diligent and exhaustive investigation of a specific subject matter with a view to knowing the truth and making original contribution in the existing stock of knowledge. So when we are researching, we are making careful, diligent and exhaustive investigation on a specific subject matter with a view of knowing the truth and making contribution to existing stock of knowledge. So it is quite essential that when we are researching, we should have a careful, diligent and exhaustive investigation on a specific subject matter. We should not pick a subject matter which is general in nature, because when it is general in nature it becomes quite difficult researching, because everything does not change at once. Society progresses with not with sudden but systematic growth. A change can be brought only one by one and not by sudden change. So we need to look into the specific requirement of that present day society. Now moving forward, what are the types of research? So here you can see that there is descriptive and analytical research, applied and fundamental research, quantitative and qualitative research, conceptual and empirical research. So what are the meaning of all these? We'll know one by one. So when we are conducting a descriptive research, what we are doing is we are just defining the state of affairs as it in the present day society. For example, when we are answering the question like what is the scope of this law, then we are identifying a descriptive category. What is the scope of law? What is the area which this law cover? What is this law for? So all these questions, determining the scope, determining the law as it is, we conduct descriptive research. So now coming to analytical research, we carefully analyze the whole law. We analyze how this law functions. So the question of how is dealt by analytical research. So in a research paper, if you're writing a research paper, you can apply all these simultaneously also or individually. It's depend on what type of research you are conducting. Second is applied and fundamental research. So when we talk about applied research is conducted by people who need to find a solution for immediate problem. In this, the researcher try to find a immediate solution of the problem. For example, a problem emerges all of a sudden like a COVID-19. Here, researcher will try to find what are the laws that can be applied in such a situation, because COVID-19 was a very new virus and law was not able to formulate suddenly. So what are the existing law that can be applied? So they will formulate a theory accordingly. So applied research is conducted in such a situation. Now moving forward, what is fundamental research? So as the name suggests, fundamental research undertakes or is a research of a fundamental behavior of law. Fundamental research involves research in the area about finding the fundamental of a thing, like what is the truth behind a human behavior, what is the fundamental. We question all the fundamental requirement in this, like what was the necessity of this law. So when the question is about fundamental, we use this kind of research. So I am telling this again that all these research methods or types of research are not mutually exclusive. They can be used simultaneously at the same time. So there is an interplay. So there is interplay between all this research. Now coming to quantitative research. So quantitative research is about numbers. When we research about finding how many people use this thing, so this kind of research is a quantitative. We ask in this kind of research, ask people about what are their experience. So we take out a sample and then conduct a research on that particular sample, that how many people are using such a law, or how many people conform with the norms of that law. For example, if we take example, recently there is a hype about one nation, one election. So the government is conducting surveys asking people that how they find one nation, one election. So if all the people, suppose 70% agree on one nation, one election, that is a data that can be accumulated as a result of quantitative research. Now, if we talk about qualitative research, in this kind of research, we delve ourselves or we rely on theory papers, such as, for example, there is existing research or there is library. We refer to all the research paper that has been already published in the public domain or law journals, digest. So all these kinds of things. In qualitative research, we delve our focus on all the literary materials. You can say that way, that we refer to all the judgment, case laws, digest, then journals, research articles. All these kind of things are done in qualitative research. So again, I'm saying all these are not mutually exclusive, but there is an interplay between every type of research. We do all kind of research simultaneously also. Now coming to conceptual and empirical research. So conceptual research is related to abstract ideas. It is about finding the concept. Like this kind of conceptual research is done by philosophers or thinkers. Like many think tank in India also do this kind of research, conceptual research. They delve and find a new concept or theory. They try to develop a new theory. On the other hand, if we look at empirical research, it relies on experience and observation alone. In empirical research, there is a requirement of experience. There is a very good relation between both these, qualitative and empirical, because on two of these, we try to find our things based on the already existing material. In empirical, we use our observation. Experiment. We find data. We rely on data. And in qualitative, we just survey the literature and we try to find our own observation. In empirical, we rely on data, and this data can be literature also. These data can be number of people conforming to that law. Like in quantitative, we rely on numbers. Same way, empirical, it is about observation. So empirical research, we build a hypothesis. What is hypothesis and how to build a hypothesis, we'll learn in the upcoming section of the video. Now moving forward, what is research methodology? So the research method involved during conducting research. All the research methods. There is research method and there is research methodology. So research methods and research methodology. The term research methodology refers to way to systematically solve the research problem. It consists of research methods. Like in previous slide, if you see that there are types of research. Type of research can be stated as research methods, and if we do research methodology, it consists of number of research. So suppose if we are simultaneously doing qualitative and empirical research, or suppose if we are doing conceptual and applied research at the same time, or any of the two research at the same time, it is called research methodology. So what is the some of the advantages of research methodology? I list it here, you can read it. I'll tell you briefly. It inculcates in a researcher the ability to formulate his research problem in an intelligent manner. So finding a research problem is very important, and research methodology is something that helps a researcher to find a research problem. It inculcates in him objectivity in perceiving his research problem and seeking solution therefore. Third, it equips him to carry out his research undertaking in an efficient manner and in a better way. It enables him to take rational decision at every step of his research. It enables him to design appropriate research technique and to use them in an intelligent and efficient manner. So you can see these are all advantages of research methodology. Moving forward, we'll see what are the sources of information. So mainly there are two sources, primary sources and secondary sources. So in law, what are the primary sources? Primary sources are all the legislations, judgments, which is rules, regulations, and everything formulated by the organs of government. We can say that is called primary sources, because law making power is granted to legislature, then judiciary is assigned the task to see whether these laws are properly applied or not. So in common law countries, there is a thing called precedent. Precedent are all the judgments passed by the higher court. So suppose a judgment is passed by a 7-judge bench, Supreme Court, then it is a precedent on all the other court or all the court of Supreme Court, even if it is lower bench in number. Suppose a 5-judge bench is delving on the same issue, then they should conform with the 7-judge bench. If they need to overrule this decision, they need a bigger bench of 9 judges. So generally a 5-judge bench is constituted when there is a constitutional problem, and it is called a constitution bench. So higher the number of bench, the more value it is on the basis of a precedent. Similarly, judgment of high court in a state have a value of precedent in all other court in that state. All district court must conform with that precedent. Now what executive do is that executive also frame some rule for their functioning. That rules, regulation, bylaw, all these kind of legislations that is passed by the executive, all the rules, regulation, bylaws, they are also primary sources. We call the rule framed by them as delegated legislation. So all these are primary sources. And moving to secondary sources, these are the commentaries, research papers, research articles, research commentaries, research paper, research articles. All these are called secondary sources. So anything deriving other than all these three organs can be called secondary sources. This can involve book, commentaries, research papers, everything other than this. These three primary sources are called secondary sources. Then there is something called tertiary source also, but I am not dealing with it because tertiary sources can also be said as a part of secondary source. Why I am saying this? Because tertiary sources is like the directories. It contains all the list of the materials that can be seen as secondary source. For example, if you look at journals, they consist a list of all the research paper. They are the directories of all the research paper, research articles. So there is a blog that contains numerous research articles. So all these can be said as part of tertiary source. So ultimately you need to remember all these, only these two, primary, secondary. Now moving forward. So what are the major stages in legal research? So I have signified it here that there are 8 stages of legal research. There are these 8 stages in legal research. So we need to see that all these 8 stages one by one. So when we are conducting a research, the first thing that we need to do is that identification and formulation of a research problem. What is a research problem? A research problem is something like a research gap. There is a loophole. You need to address this loophole. Like you need to see that law is silent on this point, or there is insufficiency of law on the same point. So the first stage is identification and formulation of research problem. Once you do this, then the next stage is review of literature, then formulation of hypothesis. So in review of literature, you will see everything present on that gap or loophole. If there is no article or no research paper addressing that issue, then you should formulate your research on that direction after review of literature. So suppose if you pick a research topic like marital rape, so you need to examine an exhaustive list of all the articles present on this topic. So how you can find the exhaustive literature? You need to visit site like JSTOR, Hain Online, Manu Patra. If you don't have premium subscription of all these, then you can visit Google Scholar, ResearchGate. All these can provide you with enough literature that you can start your legal research. Then second stage is formulation of hypothesis. I am dealing how to formulate a hypothesis separately, so I'll deal in detail how to formulate it there. I'll tell you briefly what is a hypothesis. So hypothesis is like your intuition, like what you feel about the research problem. Do you feel that marital rape should be criminalized? If you feel so, then you need to write, yes, marital rape should be criminalized. So it is just your hunch or intuition. And then when you research in that direction to find or confirm or validate your hypothesis, then your research will be conducted successfully. For example, if you confirm or reject your hypothesis, then you have to come up with reasons. What are the reasons? Now the fourth stage is research design or blueprint. Like it is building a synopsis. Synopsis consists of research problem, statement, research problem or statement of problem, research objective, research hypothesis, research methodology, literature review, chapterization. So all these things you have to make in your fourth stage, that is your research design or a blueprint. Now moving forward, you will do in the fifth stage is the collection of data. Collection of data is a very important stage. So suppose collection of data is how it is different from review of literature. So in collection of data, we rely on our reality rather than someone already written content. So when we collect data, we form interviews, we build questionnaires, we conduct surveys. So all these are the way of collecting data. Then when we collect data, we need to analyze that data. So analysis of data is also very important. Like for example, what kind of audience you targeted when you are collecting your data. What is the sample size? How you will see that data in mass number. So all these things is part of analysis of data. Then the interpretation of data. So first, while analyzing, it is a technical part. When you interpret the data for a normal person, suppose what you concluded from that data. So that is called interpretation of data. Then finally, you need to form your research report. Suppose you are writing a research paper, 5th, 6th, 7th stage is not for you. If you are building a law, if you are a government officer or a law commission, part of a law commission, then you are assigned with a task to perform a survey on the people to see whether they support one nation, one election or not, or whether they support marital rape or not. Because if you see the situation in India, marital rape is not considered as a rape, because in India marriage have some legal obligation, and one of these is performing the conjugal rights, and sexual act is also part of that conjugal right. So in India, marital rape are not considered as a rape. But as a law commission officer, you need to go to places and find data of people who are being subjected to cruelty because of such laws. It is possible that many women, Indian women, want that marital rape should be penalized. So why not collect data and analyze? So all these three stages is for a practical application. So if you are conducting or writing a research paper, then you don't need to delve into all these three stages. Then final is preparing a research report, which I already did. Now moving forward, what are the models of legal research? So model of legal research, you can see that there are 6 models of legal research. So on these 6 already existing models, we can conduct our legal research. But however, these are not some exhaustive thing that you should be bound by all these things. Generally, people or researcher only on all these 6 types of models. They rely on these models to write research paper. So these are not mutually exclusive. They have an interplay, or they are interconnected. People can use evaluative and historical at the same time. People can use comparative and historical at the same time. Now, when we talk about what is the evaluative model and what is evaluative method, evaluative model, we see how this law that is existing today came to a position where it is now, how this law evolved over a period of time to become the law that is in present day society. So when we do such type of research, that is evaluative. For example, if you see a change in law, there was IPC, but before IPC there was various penal laws. Now there is BNS. If you see BNS, evaluative research of BNS, then you will trace back to IPC, then trace back to the earlier law. All these are called evaluative law. Then you move to evaluative law. In evaluative model, we try to evaluate a law. We in this method find the concept, element, fact and everything. Then we try to examine how the law function, what the law is. So the question of what is dealt by evaluative model. Then there is identificatory and impact studies. So as the name suggests, in the identificatory we do identification. The goal in identificatory model, we find who are the beneficiaries of this law. We find the beneficiaries of the law. Who are the people that take benefit from this law? Then what is the impact of law? Then this is dealt in this model. Projective and predictive are the two that ascertain that what will be the impact of this law. Predictive, that we need to predict. For example, AI is heavily used in India, but there is no such law. So researchers try to predict what are the laws that can be passed to regulate AI, because AI system, as we know, can be dangerous. Then there is collative. Collative research, as the name suggests, it is making collection of all the research. For example, when we find a directory, when we make a directory of all case law in a one single place. For example, if we find out all the 9 judge bench case laws, then there are 17 such case law. If we conduct research on all these 17 case law and find it and place it in one research paper or research report, then it is collative. Then historical, we go back history. Then comparative, we compare with different models, with different countries, how their law operate like this, and try to see how effectively in our country this is used and how effectively in other countries same law is used, or on a same subject matter, what are the different laws in both the countries. Now there is doctrinal and non-doctrinal research. Why I try to pick it in a different slide, because these two are the major things for conducting or writing a research paper. When you are writing a research paper, you most of the time pick doctrinal research. So doctrinal is research in law, and non-doctrinal is research about law. So there is difference in and about law. So in doctrinal research, we delve into the deepness of law. We make ourselves legal expert in that field only, because we are researching in law. We go to library and see what are the research papers on that thing. So we find what law is, what are the principle making this law, what are the principle. We try to find the jurisprudence of law and all such things. In doctrinal research, we rely on a library. And non-doctrinal research is also known as empirical research, as I already stated in previous slide about empirical research, so I will not go into the deep. In empirical, we focus on the social reality of law rather than on law itself. So it's very important point. I'll highlight it. We focus on the social reality rather than on law. Now there is interrelationship between doctrinal and non-doctrinal research. As I already stated in all the previous slides, that research is not something that can be done exclusively on a single thing. A researcher can use every method simultaneously to conduct his or her legal research. Now moving forward, the last topic is how to build a hypothesis. Hypothesis is something that we try to formulate like it is a statement. You write hypothesis in a single line. For example, if you are researching whether marital rape should be criminalized, so you hypothesis, you write, yes, it appears to me that it should be criminalized, or it is your hunch or intuition. It is coming from you within that it should be criminalized because it is bad. It involves rape, and marital status should not discount the criteria for rape. Then you look into findings of others and build your opinion that yes, this is just something that should be criminalized. Then a theory of a body of theory, you rely on these things. Then your social culture is something. For example, you are a Hindu. Marriage is sacramental or very pure status. If there are chances of marital rape destroying the very essence of marriage in Hindu, then your belief should be like this: no, marital rape should not be penalized. Then on analogy, and then sixth is personal experience. So all these are the sources of formulating a hypothesis. So hypothesis help you in moving forward while writing a research problem. You need to formulate a hypothesis that is specific, like this: yes, it appear, and if you believe no, then write no, it does not appear that marital rape should be criminalized or penalized. Second thing is that it should be conceptually clear. You have a proper understanding, then you are building a hypothesis. Without understanding, you cannot build a hypothesis. You must have strong reason to build a hypothesis. Third is that your hypothesis should be empirically tested. You need to acquire data and see whether your hypothesis is successful in questioning or answering the data. So hypothesis help you in navigating research. So all these things, remember, you need to build a hypothesis so you can conduct research in an efficient manner, a research that can lead you to some conclusion. So always remember that while you are researching, you need to build a system of research. You need to be systematic. So all these things that I stated in this video will help you to conduct a systematic research. However, research is something that should be done in such a manner that is suitable to you. But when you are following all these methods of research, then it will become more easy because it contains a technique that is necessary for conducting research. In research, you should have a technique. It is mandatory for you if you want to write a good research paper, research report. And readers will also be in a journey with you when you write a research paper like this. They will see how you came to conclusion, what are your literature that you referred, how you build a hypothesis. Your research will be more complete when you follow a technique rather than not following a technique. So this is all in the video. Thank you for watching this video.